He stepped out of his car, looking both ways before entering the lobby. Then, as if the world had slowed down, she saw her, the woman from the receipt, Jasmine. Sam greeted her with a warm smile, a touch of affection Lydia had never seen him give her. They walked hand in hand into the hotel, laughing and whispering between each other. Meanwhile, in the hotel room, the air was different. The lighting was soft, the kind that made everything feel intimate, warm. Sam and Jasmine sat on the plush bed, their laughter filling the space. "This place is amazing," Jasmine said, her voice light and teasing. "You always know the best spots. Do you do this for all your girlfriends?" she added with a smile, poking him in the ribs. Sam laughed, his arm wrapping around her. "You're the only one who gets this treatment. I mean, how could I resist? You're too irresistible." Jasmine leaned in. You say that, but I don't think I've heard you talk about your wife like this. You really seem happy with me. You always have been." Sam's smile faltered for just a second, but he quickly recovered, kissing her forehead. "It's just not the same, you know. You and I go a long way." Jasmine's eyes softened as she pulled back to look at him. "You deserve to be happy, Sam. If you want something else, you need to go for it. You can't keep pretending. You and I are supposed to be together. The universe approves of this." Sam stared at her for a moment, his fingers trailing along her arm. His voice dropped lower. "I know I feel so torn sometimes, but when I'm with you, it's different. I can just be myself." Jasmine's smile was a silent promise as her lips grazed his, a fleeting touch that sent a jolt of electricity through his body. "You are yourself with me," she murmured, her voice low and steady, but laced with an intensity that made his pulse race. "And that, my darling, is all that matters." Before he could respond, she seized him, pulling him into a kiss that was not gentle, but full of raw hunger and longing. Back at the car park, Lydia finally gathered herself and drove home. She sat at the dining table where she cried her heart out. Tonight was supposed to be special. She had just found out she was carrying twins after 5 years of them trying. "Hey, sorry I'm late. I had to finish up some work stuff at the office." Lydia's eyes were red, but she forced a smile. "It's okay. I understand." Her voice was steady, her face calm as she walked to the kitchen. She busied herself with something, anything, to avoid facing him directly. "I'll make it up to you tomorrow, okay?" Sam added, standing up. "I promise. Work has just been crazy." He paused, stepping closer to her. "I'm sorry I missed our dinner, babe. I swear it wasn't intentional." Lydia kept her back to him. It wasn't intentional. The words felt like acid on her tongue. He didn't know how badly he was lying, how much he already knew. "Don't worry about it," Lydia said, her voice tight. "You've been working hard, I get it." He kissed her on the cheek, and for a moment, everything felt like it used to. But Lydia knew better now. His words were empty. He wasn't working late. He wasn't sorry. He was with her. As she stood in front of the stove, tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't let him see. Not yet. She sat on the kitchen floor and sobbed her heart out. She felt so broken and hurt. That night, as she lay there unable to sleep, a plan began to form. She was going to get to the bottom of this. 4 days later, Lydia put her plan into motion. She casually walked into the same cafe she had seen the woman frequent. For 2 days, had been quietly following her for some time, and with the help of her private investigator, she got some details about the woman. She wasn't sure how to approach her, but fate made it easier. The woman was sitting alone, sipping coffee and typing away on her laptop. Lydia took a deep breath and walked over. "Excuse me," she said with a warm smile. "I couldn't help but notice you. You look familiar. Did you attend the business event at the hotel last month?" The woman, caught off guard, looked up. She smiled, clearly flattered. "Oh, yes. That was a while ago, though." Lydia sat down across from her, letting the conversation flow naturally. She made small talk, learning that the woman's name was Jasmine. They exchanged pleasantries, with Lydia carefully gauging Jasmine's personality. She was charming, confident, but there was something about her that felt off. Over the weeks, they became friendly, meeting a few times a week for coffee or lunch. Lydia's friendly demeanor and willingness to listen worked to her advantage. Jasmine began to open up, telling her more about herself than Lydia expected. One afternoon, over iced lattes at a cafe, Jasmine let slip that she was dating a married man. "His name is Sam," Jasmine said casually, stirring her drink. Lydia sat frozen in her chair, her iced latte melting forgotten on the table. This was the very conversation she was here for. She watched as Jasmine spoke, her words laced with a cold fury that seemed to rattle the very air around them. She suddenly seemed angry. Every sentence that followed felt like a blow, each one revealing something shocking that made Lydia's heart hammer in her chest. Jasmine's eyes were now hard, filled with an anger that simmered just beneath the surface. "You don't understand," Jasmine said, her voice low and shaky with emotion. "Me and this man have history. We were college sweethearts, and I loved him so much. He promised we'd always be together, but the minute I needed him the most, when I needed him to be there for me, he was gone. Not only did he not care about me, but he didn't even care about what happened to me. What he did to me. It broke me." Lydia's fingers twitched, her mind racing, piecing together the fragments of the story. She had thought she was simply tracking a woman who was having an affair with her husband, but now she realized that the story ran much deeper. Jasmine wasn't just another mistress. She was someone whose life had been destroyed by the very man who had so easily moved on to Lydia. The story of Jasmine and Sam had always seemed like the perfect love story to her. A high school to college romance, the kind of passionate, all-consuming connection that made the world outside feel insignificant. They had been inseparable, promising each other that no matter what happened, they would always stick together. But that promise had been shattered in the most brutal way. It had started as a careless mistake, one that at first neither of them had fully grasped. But soon, reality hit like a wrecking ball. Jasmine was pregnant. Sam, though still a young man, had been insistent, his voice filled with panic when he learned the news. "We can't do this, not now, not us," he said, his face pale. He promised they'd find a way out, and she, in her fear and vulnerability, listened. The decision to have the abortion had been excruciating, but that wasn't the worst part. The procedure was complicated, and what should have been a simple medical procedure left Jasmine with life-altering consequences. The doctors had done their best, but there had been complications, and in the end, Jasmine lost her womb. The physical pain was unbearable, but the emotional toll was even worse. The silence from Sam in the aftermath of the operation had been deafening. He never once held her hand or apologized for the mess they were in. He acted like it was her fault. He walked away. The relationship, the love, everything they had once shared disintegrated with chilling ease. The man who had once promised her the world turned his back on her in her most vulnerable moment. It broke her. Jasmine had given him everything, her love, her trust, and in the end, her body. She felt empty, hollow, with a future that now seemed impossible. But there was no time to dwell on her pain. Sam had quickly moved on, with other girls in the school, leaving Jasmine to grapple with the wreckage of her life alone. I couldn't walk away from him, Jasmine continued, her voice thick with venom. I couldn't let him get away with what he did to me, Jasmine continued, her voice thick with venom. One day, out of pain and anger, I set his house on fire, hoping he would burn to hell. Jasmine spat, as if admitting to the most justified thing in the world. I didn't care. I wanted him to feel the way I felt. And when I found out he wasn't even home that day, that his parents had been in the house instead, it nearly destroyed me all over again. Lydia barely heard the last part. His parents. The guilt that crushed her chest was unbearable. But what she felt for Sam now wasn't just guilt, it was something much colder. She had been married to him for years, and this whole time he had been someone else entirely. Jasmine had left the country shortly after the incident with Sam's parents without anyone finding out what she had done. She thought time and distance would help her heal, but the years had only amplified the bitterness inside her. Every day, the hurt simmered, and every night her mind replayed the haunting image of Sam's cold, indifferent face as he turned away. She could never forget how easily he walked out of her life. 10 years had passed, 10 years of trying to forget, of trying to rebuild herself. But every time she thought she had put it all behind her, their anger would surge again. She had built a new life, made new connections, and learned to hide the scars beneath a composed exterior. But the wound was still there, raw and festering. The pain never fully healed, and Jasmine knew that she would never truly be whole again. "So now you're back," Lydia said, her voice hoarse, betraying none of the shock she felt. "You're back for revenge, to destroy him and his family."